the second day of creation. We're going to read Genesis chapter 1, verses 6, 7, and 8. Anybody like to volunteer to read Genesis chapter 1, the second day of creation? Don't all raise your hands at once now. Okay, who laughed first?
Well, let the Bible in the car.
You want to read, Nick?
Sure.
You know, when you move, right?
What's that?
Once you move, right, you just volunteered. If you smile, you volunteered. So, keep smiling, everybody.
Or chapter 2, you said?
Chapter 1, verse 6, Genesis chapter 1, verses 6, 7, and 8. The second day of creation.
Okay. And God said, let there be a firmament in the midst of the waters, and let it divide the waters from the waters. And God made the firmament, and divided the waters which were under the firmament from the waters which were from above the firmament, and it was so. And God called the firmament heaven, and the evening and the morning were the second day.
Thank you, Nick. We'll continue to do this. And like I said, because the earlier parts of this book is not going to have a lot of scripture. So, where are we now? Huh? Okay, we're on Matter Demands a Maker, right? Page 2. It's interesting how when the world that does not want to acknowledge God, they could not even have common sense anymore. They will defy their own system of study, which is science, right? And they contradict themselves just to take the position that there's no such thing as God. So, as we study this little section here, you'll find that what they're saying doesn't even make sense. The position they're taking doesn't even make sense. And these are some of the arguments that we're always going to run into when we're dealing with people that are straight up non-believers and non-Bible readers. That's why, once again, the beginning of this section of this book is used to enhance people to be prepared to talk about God without Scripture at this point. But we ourselves would have the basis of the Scriptures to support us. Okay, who wants to read? Thank you. See, that was a smile right there.
Every material effect must have a cause that came before it, or was simultaneous to it, and is greater than it. The universe is a material effect. Therefore, the universe must have a cause that came before it, that was greater than it.
Oh, keep going.
No rational person denies the fact that matter exists. The universe and every atom that makes it up is a reality. The logical question to ask is, where did it all come from? From the Milky Way to the most distant galaxy in the universe, what was the cause? What made matter? A study of the material universe reveals that every physical effect must have an adequate antecedent or simultaneous cause, an idea known as the law of cause and effect, or the law of causality. The American flag that stood erect on the surface of the moon in 1969 was neither eternal nor without a cause. Its existence on the moon demands a sufficient cause. The robotic rovers that have rolled across the surface of Mars since the early 21st century are the effect of adequate causes. No one believes that they popped into existence from nothing, or that they are the result of any number of ridiculous, insufficient causes that can be suggested, such as an accidental explosion in a junkyard on Earth, sent metal objects spiraling towards Mars that assembled themselves into the robotic rovers. Simply put, all material effect demands adequate causes.
Why don't you read the next paragraph and then you stop, okay?
So what caused the universe and all the matters in the universe? The theory that atheist evolutionists have advanced for several decades now, which supposedly best explains our existence from a purely naturalistic perspective, is known as the Big Bang. Allegedly, about 14 billion years ago, all of the matter and energy in the universe was concentrated in a tiny ball of matter that exploded, causing the eventual formation of galaxies throughout the universe.
Thank you.
Right.
The concept of cause and effect, the effect is not ever going to be greater than the cause. Something stronger has to create the effect. Because I was watching a brother preacher talk about cause and effect, and he says, you know, can something tiny create something that's big? I mean, like, can you imagine a little fly, just a little fly, being able to take a baseball and throw it and break your window or something like that? You get what I'm saying? To be able to break a window with a baseball, you're going to need somebody with a good, strong arm. Somebody can actually throw the ball. So you can't have like a little insect and to throw a ball and break a window. That just won't work because there's not enough cause to create that type of effect. So when you're talking about the Big Bang Theory, right, you stop and think about the common sense part of the Big Bang Theory. First of all, where did matter come from, right? Everybody don't know, right? But somewhere along the line, they're going to say, well, it just happened, right? And if they keep going back so many billions of years, and they keep reaching back billions and billions, and they just keep on reaching back billions of years, eventually those billions of years are going to give them the answer to why it happened. It's like if you tell a lie long enough or enough times, people are going to believe your lie. Okay? You guys have a book? Why don't you use this one? This is the class copy that I used. That I wrote out, okay? We're at page 2, page 3 now. Thank you. When we go back to think about what the Big Bang is, at least what it's done today, let's just say there really was a Big Bang thing, and it really happened, right? And according to these physicists and these scientists, it was 25 pounds of matter, right? 25 pounds, basically, and it was so tight that it blew up, right? If anything blows up, right, stick a dynamite, a firecracker, even an atom bomb. When things blow up, it spreads and it lands. You don't end up with stars and suns and moons and rotation and seasons and all this stuff that's in order, right? It doesn't happen like that.
Yeah.
That's common sense. Why is everything so perfect right now? We look at our calendar and we can tell that somewhere in this time of the year, the flowers are going to bloom. The leaves are going to come out. All your deciduous trees like your maples and stuff like that, they're going to start budding out this time of the year, every year. And then 6 months from now into what they call autumn or fall, which is the nickname, and they call it fall because the leaves fall. It's going to happen.
Right.
It's not because 14 billion years ago a bomb blew off. Because something blew up 14 billion years ago, now everything's in order, right? And not only is everything in order, now we got us. Right? We got people. How did people come out of something that just blew up? How does it that people right now can reproduce? How can it be that all the plant life can reproduce? All the animal life can reproduce off of an explosion? Just stop and think about, where's the logic on that?
That's right.
Where is the logic of the Big Bang? The only way the Big Bang works for the people that want to believe it is by no God. If you keep God out of the conversation and you don't let Him be part of your conversation or their conversation, then it might work for them. Because we know God created the heavens and the earth. If there was such a thing as the Big Bang, where did the 25 pounds of matter come from? From God? You can't say it came from nothing. Because if you have nothing today, you got nothing tomorrow. How many of us in the hard times in life, and a lot of us know what that feels like. Some people have it better off than others, but you look in your bank book and you got nothing. And tomorrow, you got nothing. We go for a long period of time and we got nothing. We know what nothing is. Nothing means it don't exist. We don't got anything. That's what nothing is. So how can you take nothing and all of a sudden you got 25 pounds of matter? Now after the 25 pounds of matter, the concept is that it blew up and now everything's in order. Now everything's perfect. Now we have perfect design. We have gravity. We have seasons. I mean, you start naming all the things that are happening. You look at anything that's created on the earth. You notice there's a science in everything just about that we study. There's guys that study bugs. There's guys that study plants. There's guys that study different animals. There are dog specialists, cat specialists. You got tiger specialists. I mean, you got people that study the different parts of the body. You have heart surgeons. You got brain surgeons. You got finger surgeons. Everything is complicated. How could that all come out of a bomb?
I just wonder, you say it weighed 25 pounds. They said this weight 25 pounds. This matter that blew or whatever. You said it weighs 25 pounds. You saying they said, or you just saying it weighed 25?
They say it.
So
I'm saying they're dumb. I'm saying they're saying something that is not right because
How do
I
they
believe
know
in
that?
God.
how
So,
did they
yeah.
know it weighed 25 pounds?
They don't.
Well,
It's like making up
Yeah,
a
that's
lie.
what I-
It's like making up a lie, right? It's like if you ask me why I'm this or I'm that, and I could just tell you, the reason I did this is because I did. I mean, you're just lying.
So who weighed it? Where is the scale?
And who was there 14 billion years ago? Huh? Who was there 14 billion years ago? I saw this hand first.
It's not even logical because the purpose of a bomb is to destroy, not to create.
Good move.
Not even logical.
Yeah, but they didn't call it a bomb. They called it a big bang.
Yeah.
So, but it's the same thing. We
Explosion, yeah.
recognize an explosion. That's why I said when things blow up, it spreads, right? So even if this matter blew up, it would be in little particles. How would you get a sun out of it, a moon out of it? How would you get fish and water? And I'm starting naming all those things that come out of a little bomb.
I read once where it's akin to taking a 1,000-piece puzzle, throwing it up in the air, and have it land put together. Perfectly put together, and it's just impossible for it to do.
And even that is probably more possible than what they're talking about. Even that is more possible.
Yes.
Even that would be more possible to happen than for nothing to become something and then blow up and then, hey, here we are, right? Here we are. And now you have people that do not recognize who God is, right? Romans chapter 1 verse 20 talks about there comes a time when people do not recognize the Creator. And they're going to cleave on to the creation. They worship the creation versus the Creator. The Creator is God. The creation would be like people saying, oh, I'm going to worship the sun. I'm going to worship the moon. I'm going to worship the tree monster. I'm going to worship the volcano gods and the winds and everything else that's around. They're going to worship, but they're not going to worship the one that created it all. All right? Marla?
The other only way that the Big Bang Theory could make sense outside of what you said about not believing in God and homosexuality as well is you negate the law of nature. We have laws nobody can break. And if you negate a seed will produce after its own kind, well, that means you can put your seed anywhere. You know what I'm saying? So I'm just saying, if you don't believe in the law that God created, that's another reason why you can believe in evolution.
Well, that's why we're working on this, to see what doesn't even make sense, right? Like I said earlier, you look in your bank book and you got 0 in it, right? And I want to buy a new car. Okay? How are you going to do that? How are you going to do that? Right? I need a new car, but I got 0 in the bank. I got nothing. How am I going to buy a new car? Right?
Yeah.
I mean, and this is just little silly stuff we're talking about. We're not even talking about creation, the world, the universe. I mean, when you stop and look at how the world and the universe is made, you know, when you're a young kid, you don't really realize too much because your world is right down here. But as you go to school and you start hearing different words, like our solar system is just us and the sun. Then you got your galaxies, and then you got your universe. It gets bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. And it's all in order. It's all in order.
You have to believe in God.
You have to believe in God. Because when you have something that is so set and so created and is made, you have to have a maker. You have to have a maker. I talked about this before. There's a brother who had an argument with atheists. An atheist said, can you prove that there's a God? Right? So the guy says, yeah, sure. So he takes off his shoe. He puts his shoe right there on the coffee table. Right? And the guy looks at his shoe. He goes, well, how's that going to prove there's a God? He goes, well, how did the shoe get there? Right? Was it created? Was it made? Or was it always there? See, some people say that the world and the universe has always been there. He goes, because if it wasn't always there, and it will always be there, right, then somebody had to make that shoe. And the maker is the one that made the shoe. And when you look at the universe and you look at the harmony of the world and nature and everything else, somebody made it, just like that shoe. And that argument was a little silly, I thought, but it makes sense. Whenever you look at anybody that has anything that's made, I hear brothers talk about their wristwatch. They put a watch there. How come this watch ticks perfectly? Right? Because there was a watchmaker that made the watch. It doesn't just happen. You can't just go to a junkyard, grab some metal, throw it up in the air, and all of a sudden you got a watch. You can't just grab some metal, throw it in the air, and all of a sudden you have a computer. Right? Because if you do, you still got to pay Comcast. Did I see a hand here?
Oh, sorry, your verse from Romans that Paul said.
Let's turn over. Romans chapter 1. Verse 20. You want to read that?
Okay.
And we'll read 20 to 25. No, 26. 20 to 26. Why don't you read that right now?
Romans chapter 1. Oh, 26? Or 21 to 26?
20 to 26.
26.
Chapter 1. For the invisible things of the world.
For the invisible things of him, from the creation of the world are clearly seen, being understood by the things that are made, even his eternal power and Godhead, so that they are without excuse. Because that, when they knew God, they glorified him not as God, neither were thankful, but became vain in their imaginations, and their foolish heart was darkened. Professing themselves to be wise, they became fools, and changed the glory of the uncorruptible God into an image made like to corruptible man, and to birds, and four-footed beasts, and creeping things. Wherefore God also gave them up to uncleanness through the lusts of their own hearts, to dishonor their own bodies between themselves, who changed the truth of God into a lie, and worship and serve the creature more than the Creator, who is blessed forever. Amen. For this cause God gave them up unto vile affections, for even their women did change the natural use into that which is against nature.
Thank you. See, what happens is that the creation tells you there's a God. That's what it is. You look and you will see that there is a God. He exists because of what's already made and what is set in order. To believe that it just happened, it doesn't even fit science. To believe that it's always been there, doesn't fit science. And they think that by adding enough zeros in the, when it happened, like, well, it used to be 3 million years ago, 10 billion years ago, 14 billion years ago. Doesn't matter how many billion years. I mean, you can have billion years ago, right? Where you got so many zeros. You still can't take nothing and have something, and then here we are. Here we are, out of nothing, right? Science, as we study this book, will show you that only life gives life. You can't take an inanimate object and have life, right? But if you believe in evolution, if you believe in the Big Bang, right, then you can get yourself a pet rock, and one day that's going to be a human.
Yeah, right.
Thank you. Right?
Wrong.
Because it takes a human to make a human. And where'd that come from? It comes from God. God created man. And He breathed in him the soul. And that's where we are. And when people are alive, they can make babies. A dead person can't make a baby. Right? A dead person can't reproduce.
Nope.
Right?
Do the atheists just believe that things happen?
The atheist is going to believe anything but God.
Oh, really?
Anything, you tell them anything, they'll believe almost. I mean, they're relying on men. That's why what they're doing is they're taking the wisdom of men. That's why they became fools. That's what was that, verse 21, 22? It said that they became fools because they thought they're smarter than God. That's what scientists think. They think they're smarter than God because this is the only way they don't recognize God. And there's so many people that we in the 21st century consider to be really smart, intelligent people. And they might be able to calculate certain things. They might be able to memorize certain things. They might be able to have a recollection of many things and be able to talk and teach and this and that. But when they don't have God, they don't have anything. You know? You got people that worry about, they got their bachelor's degree, their master's degree, their PhDs. They got all these degrees, right? But they don't got the G-O-D. They got the PhD, but they don't got the G-O-D. And you got to have your G-O-D. You got to have God. Okay. Let's go on. Anybody else like to read? No, we're at page 3. The obvious problem. Did we read? No. So what the cause? We gotta read that first.
We read that.
We're at that. Okay. Yeah, 14 billion. That's right. The obvious problem. Go ahead, Steve.
The obvious problem with this inadequate explanation is that even if the Big Bang actually happened, and sound science argues against such a theory, a person must still explain whence came the original ball of matter. It must have an adequate cause. What do some leading atheists and agnostics around the world argue about the cause of matter? Atheistic cosmologist Stephen Hawking stated on national TV in 2011, "Nothing caused the Big Bang." In the book, The Grand Design, that Dr. Hawking co-authored, he and Leonard Mlodinow asserted bodies such as stars and black holes cannot just appear out of nothing, but a whole universe can. In 2006, Todd Friel asked Dan Barker, one of America's leading atheists, "Do you really believe that something came from nothing?" Barker responded with a simple yes. The observable truth is, however, in nature, matter and energy are neither created nor destroyed. Scientists refer to this fact as the first law of thermodynamics. Though evolutionists have alleged that the universe began with the explosion of a ball of matter several billion years ago, they never provided a reasonable explanation for the cause of the original ball of matter. Nothing is not a reasonable explanation. In 2007, Pro-Evolutionary New Scientist magazine ran a cover story titled "The Beginning," What Triggered the Big Bang, in which the publication attempted to explain the origin of the universe. But consider the last line of the featured article. The quest to understand the origin of the universe seems destined to continue until we can answer a deeper question: why is there anything at all instead of nothing? The implication of such a question is quite clear. If at any time in the past nothing existed, then nothing should exist today.
Right.
The fact is, a reasonable naturalistic explanation for the origin of the original ball of matter that supposedly led to the universe does not exist. One of the world's leading atheists, Richard Dawkins, has basically admitted such.
Why don't you go to the next paragraph too, and then we'll stop.
In a panel discussion in 2012 on Australian national TV, Dr. Dawkins was asked, how is it that something as enormous as the universe comes from nothing? Notice what Dawkins admitted. Of course it's counterintuitive that you can get something from nothing. Of course common sense doesn't allow you to get something from nothing. That's why it's interesting. It's got to be interesting in order to give rise to the universe at all. Something pretty mysterious had to give rise to the origin of the universe. Indeed, atheism's explanation for the origin of matter does not agree with what seems right or natural. According to Dawkins' own admissions, the idea of getting something from nothing in nature defies common sense. It is far from sound and prudent judgment based on the simple perception of the situation or facts.
Thank you. You see how certain things were talked about? Nothing caused the Big Bang, right? There was nothing. And then all of a sudden there's something. And that's what caused the Big Bang. How come from nothing we got something? They can't answer that. They cannot answer why from nothing we had something. And from nothing we have all this. And even these atheists, he's saying that can bodies and black holes, can they just not appear out of nothing? He says, no. You can't have these things out of nothing, but a whole universe can. That's almost like saying, I got nothing, and I need a new car, but I now own a car lot. I mean, it's crazy. Nick?
You know, Stephen Hawking suffered, I don't know if he's still alive, but
No, he's passed away.
Passed away, very debilitating disease or condition that put him in a wheelchair. He couldn't speak all the way through a speak and spell. That's how he spoke. I'm sure he's giving glory to man on that, but I mean, it would seem obvious to like give glory to God that he was able to continue to teach and quote unquote speak.
Well, that's what happens when you have people that, like I say, that's got all these degrees, right? They got every degree in the world in their topic, and they become, you know, the smartest man in the world, the smartest man in his field, right? He's the authority of this topic, but he does not have God. That's why I say he's got his PhD, but he doesn't have his GOD. So I'll say first.
Yeah, I was speaking with somebody, and they said, well, you know, this person has all these degrees, and, you know, they've studied this, and they've studied that. I said, well, if his premise first is to say 2 + 2 = 5, everything from that above is wrong. Why would you even listen to somebody with that if they have the first basic premise of all their argument wrong? Then everything else is for nothing.
That's true. Right. If you could have nothing and all of a sudden you have something and you can't explain where the something comes from, but I'm going to keep believing you. Right? I'm going to keep on believing you. Because the only way that this works, the only way that you could stand on this type of thinking is to leave God out. If you leave God out of it and you say there is no such thing as a God, there is no such thing as a creator, these things just happen, right? We just appeared. I mean, when you look at how science talks about all of a sudden there was water, and out of the water, right, again, out of nowhere, out of the water comes these little fish, and out of the little fish started changing up, and now you get these little creepy things. These little creepy things became, you know, tree guys, and the tree guys became humans. I mean, none of it makes sense.
Well, I don't know.
They bypass the
Let me get his hand first.
Most people, non-believers or existentialists, they just believe or limited to the here and now. If they can't touch it, feel it, or smell it, it doesn't exist.
That's true. And that's why they look at God, that they can't have a conversation, I can't talk to God. But what they don't understand is God's Spirit. Romans chapter 1 verse 20 says, you look at the creation. It's right there, it tells you that. Psalm chapter 19, it tells you that. His creation is His glory. He's showing you what He's made. Right? If you were an artist, and whatever your art is, and you got it, and we got it right here, we take off the bed sheet, and you look at it, everybody goes, whoa! Nobody's going to say it just happened. Whatever it is that you make, you're going to bake the cake, or you're going to restore the car, you're going to do some chisel work off of a piece of rock. It doesn't matter. Whatever it is that is made was made by someone, and that's what we're talking about right here. Everything that's made has a maker. Everything has a maker.
They sure dumb to have degrees.
Were you next? I'm sorry.
Paul.
Go ahead.
All I was going to say is atheism is actually a religion, because they require you to believe just on their word, without any kind of evidence or without any kind of backing, that you have to believe in the Big Bang Theory, or else you're called a flat earther or a denier, or et cetera, et cetera. You have to hold fast to that, because it's now a theology, blind faith, that you put all your faith into this belief system. So it's not like atheism is the absence of religion. It's actually its own religion in itself.
Right. Their religion is that they don't want to believe in God.
That's it.
And that their religion is that the Big Bang is hot. And you're right. In essence, they have outlined how they believe, what they believe. And just like we have book, chapter, and verse what God tells us, this happened, this happened, this happened. They got their little book, chapter, and verses by saying, well, 14 billion years ago, out of nothing came something, and they go on and on with their little theology, like you say. Sarah?
But they believe that there's no God because they can't see, smell, taste, and whatever. And yet they believe they have a brain.
Yeah, but they can't see the matter. They can't, they can't see the matter. They can't see the explosion, right? They're the same thing. All they're seeing is the effect of what we have today, right? Just like we see that. They see us. They see humans. They understand the laws of nature, right? But anything that's the laws of nature is God made.
Right.
Like when you say, I eat natural food. I'm just eating food that God made instead of what man putting these little preservatives in, right? You're just eating what man, right?
Right.
So natural food is like an apple or an orange or a banana. That's natural food without pesticides,
Yeah.
right? That's why people farm. They grow their own foods because there's too much pesticides. A friend of mine was telling me he knew a guy that worked in the produce market, and he asked his buddy, he goes, hey, these grapes, they good? The guy looks at him and goes, they're sweet. He goes, but are they good? He goes, they're sweet, because it's his produce market, right? But this guy's close friends with him. Then he goes, well, what do you think? So the guy gets in there and he goes, I wouldn't eat them. I mean, he saw them, right? It's like, how come you wouldn't eat these sweet grapes, right? And this is his answer. I only eat grapes from California, because these other grapes come from other places where they didn't control the pesticides. At least in California, we got laws and legislations to keep our pesticides at least more controlled. You go to other places where they don't care, put some Roundup on it, we'll get rid of all the bugs, right? And then we start eating the grapes, and all of a sudden you wake up one day and you got no hair, right? You got no eyebrows, right? How come? Because the pesticides. But I had to share that story with you. He says, I wouldn't eat them. This guy's selling produce. But that's something we want to think about. The things that God made is natural. Anything that's not made by God, made by man, it's not natural. So when we look at the laws of nature, it's the way God made it. Like gravity, right? Man can't create that. All he can do is understand how God made it. so that when you drop something, it drops because of gravity. When you get up to space, people float around. When you're in the water, your body weight's different. Right? Just because they understand it didn't mean they created it. God created it. These are laws of nature. It's just like every day we get a day older. A day older. Right?
Right.
And if things are going well for us, we get a day smarter. Right? I mean, that's what's supposed to be. Steve.
Well, throughout history, a lot of our governments, mankind, it's a rebellion. If they acknowledge a creator, they've got to acknowledge right and wrong, and most people don't want to hear it.
That's going back to atheism again, once again, by not giving God the glory. And that's where we're at right now. We're in a society where there's more people that will not recognize God than people that recognize God. We are the minority right now. Every school system is teaching about evolution. Dinosaurs, right? And they got the time frame. They're right, there are dinosaurs. You can never say there was not dinosaurs because the bones tell you they existed. It's just that they didn't exist the time frame that they're talking about. They don't recognize how old the world actually is. And when you talk about this carbon dating and whatnot, that's just what their little scale that they're using. That's not, it's not accurate. Mark,
Yeah,
first.
and I believe it was Disney that came out with a cartoon movie not too long ago of half human and half animal. I forget who it was.
Just
Nick
recently,
knows.
the missing link, that one?
I don't remember the name of it, but this guy was human with animal back, legs, talking. So.
Well, most of if you go back into any type of history and you look at like Greek mythology, you'll see, half man, half goat, or half man, half horse, right? You look at the Egyptians, they had a half man, half cat, right? So that's why in Romans chapter 1, starting with verse 20, talks about how they start to worship the creatures.
Yeah.
So man that doesn't believe in God will always deal with these different things. Okay? I think it's time to close. Last comment right here.
Yeah, I heard this little story once that really puts man in his place. This man was having a conversation with God. He said, "Oh God, you're nothing. I can create a man." He said, "Okay, go ahead and create a man." He gets down and starts to pull up some dirt. God knocks out his head and said, "You make your own dirt. You make your own dirt, then you make a man. It's my dirt. You make your own dirt, then you make the man. Then you tell me who made me."
That's kind of cute. That's right. You get your own dirt. You got to make your own dirt first. And you can start with nothing, right? You can start with nothing. Okay. Next week, we have a guest speaker. So this class is not going to be this topic here. Okay? We have a guest speaker next Sunday. So we're going to continue 2 weeks from today. All right?